When it comes to understanding avoidant behavior, it is crucial to first recognize that these individuals operate from a place of deep-seated emotional protection. Avoidants are not indifferent because they do not care. They are cautious because vulnerability feels threatening to them. This fear of vulnerability stems from early life experiences, often shaped by inconsistent emotional availability from caregivers or environments where expressing needs was met with discomfort, rejection, or dismissal. Over time, this creates a psychological pattern where intimacy is associated with risk rather than reward. Their natural response is to pull away to create space and to maintain a sense of autonomy that feels safe. Observing an avoidant may initially be confusing because their actions often send mixed signals. They may engage warmly and then suddenly retreat, or show interest but insist on distance. This push-pull dynamic is not a reflection of your worth or desirability. It is a manifestation of their internal struggle between craving connection and fearing it. Understanding this distinction is transformative because it shifts the perspective from frustration to insight. When you begin to perceive their behavior as a protective mechanism rather than a personal rejection, it allows you to respond with awareness rather than impulsive emotion. Avoidants tend to have highly developed coping strategies to maintain their independence while appearing socially adept. They are often charming, articulate, and capable of building meaningful connections in contexts where the emotional demands are manageable. Yet, when intimacy demands deep emotional transparency, they instinctively retreat. This pattern is not something they can easily switch off because it has been reinforced over years and often decades of practice. Recognizing that avoidants operate from a place of fear rather than malice enables you to navigate interactions with greater ease. Their desire for control over emotional closeness is not necessarily conscious, but it is pervasive in how they structure relationships. It becomes evident that the core of their avoidance is about self-preservation, about maintaining a sense of safety and autonomy that feels threatened by too much intimacy too quickly. By observing their triggers and responses, you begin to see that their distancing behaviors are consistent patterns rather than random acts. The more you understand their need for space, the less reactive you become when they pull away or seem disinterested. This understanding allows you to approach them with a calm, centered presence that does not feed into anxiety or neediness. Avoidants may appear aloof or detached, but they are often acutely aware of relational dynamics and sensitive to any perceived pressure. Your ability to stay grounded while respecting their emotional boundaries paradoxically increases their interest because it signals stability, self-confidence, and security. Recognizing that their avoidance is a protective instinct rather than a rejection transforms your approach to relationships entirely. It allows you to engage strategically, responding to their behavior with patience, empathy, and clarity while simultaneously upholding your own emotional standards. The psychology of avoidance is complex, layered, and often misunderstood because their internal world is rich yet guarded. Their desire for connection exists alongside a fear of exposure, creating a delicate balance between engagement and retreat, attraction and hesitation, closeness and distance, which requires nuanced observation, understanding, and a high level of emotional intelligence. The power of attraction through mystery is one of the most potent tools when dealing with avoidant personalities, because avoidants are wired to respond to what feels slightly out of reach. They are naturally drawn to individuals who carry an aura of independence, confidence, and unpredictability, because these qualities activate their curiosity and challenge their habitual emotional patterns. Mystery is not about playing games or being manipulative. It is about cultivating a life that is full, vibrant, and self-sustaining, so that your presence naturally commands attention without overt effort. Avoidants are often intrigued by people who do not immediately reveal all aspects of themselves, because complete transparency can feel overwhelming to them. When someone maintains a sense of intrigue, they stimulate the avoidant's mind and spark a desire to know more, to reach further and to engage more deeply on their own terms. Living a life of purpose, ambition, and fulfillment communicates value in a way that words alone cannot. And this silent form of communication resonates deeply with avoidants who are attuned to subtleties and cues rather than direct emotional declarations. By cultivating your own passions, interests, and friendships, you create a sense of abundance that the avoidant perceives as attractive, because it signals that you are not dependent on their attention or approval for your happiness. Mystery also thrives in the art of selective sharing. It is about revealing enough to create connection, but holding back enough to maintain an air of intrigue. Avoidants often respond to this balance because it respects their need for space while simultaneously piquing their interest. They are compelled to invest effort into understanding and discovering someone who is not immediately available. And this investment triggers a natural pursuit that is deeply satisfying for them. The subtle interplay of engagement and detachment, presence and absence, makes them aware that connection must be earned rather than freely given, and this dynamic significantly increases the intensity of their attraction. Mystery is also reflected in non-verbal communication, in the way you carry yourself, your body language, and your energy. Confident postures, calm composure, and steady eye contact communicate strength and self-assuredness, which draws the avoidant in without a single word. Your ability to remain grounded, composed, and self-sufficient creates a magnetic pull because it signals that you are not seeking validation or approval, which aligns perfectly with the avoidant's need for autonomy. Additionally, the power of mystery lies in its capacity to maintain emotional balance. When you are not constantly chasing, explaining, or over-communicating, you prevent the avoidant from feeling trapped or pressured, which allows them to approach freely, driven by their own curiosity and desire. Mystery, therefore, becomes a form of silent influence that engages the avoidant's mind and emotions simultaneously. They are drawn not only to what they see, but also to what they sense, to the energy you radiate and the life you live, which communicates worthiness without direct assertion. By mastering this delicate balance between openness and reserve, between presence and independence, you create an environment in which the avoidant is naturally compelled to pursue, explore, and invest because they feel a genuine desire to understand someone who embodies intrigue, depth, and unshakable self-confidence. And the pursuit becomes as fulfilling for them as the connection itself. The 5 key actions that trigger an avoidant to chase are rooted deeply in understanding their psychological wiring. And when applied thoughtfully, they can transform the dynamics of any relationship with someone who tends to pull away. The first action is maintaining clear, consistent boundaries. Avoidants are highly sensitive to people who overstep, who are needy, or who attempt to force closeness too quickly, because such behaviors threaten the sense of autonomy they hold dear. By defining what is acceptable and what is not, by being firm yet calm about your limits, you create a framework that they can navigate without feeling trapped, and paradoxically, this structured space encourages them to move toward you rather than retreat. Boundaries are not walls, they are signals of self-respect and self-sufficiency, and avoidants are instinctively drawn to individuals who carry this sense of inner authority because it balances the natural tension between closeness and independence. The second action is living a full, abundant life that is independent of their involvement. Avoidants are attracted to people who do not revolve around their attention, who have passions, goals, and social connections that make their world rich and compelling. When you demonstrate that your happiness, growth, and fulfillment are self-generated, you trigger their natural curiosity and desire because they perceive you as a person of high value who cannot be easily possessed or controlled. The third action is demonstrating emotional stability and calm composure. Avoidants are often uncomfortable with intense, reactive emotions because it threatens their sense of security. When you respond to interactions with patience, measured responses, And emotional consistency, it provides a safe space for them to engage without triggering their fear of engulfment. They are drawn to the steadiness you embody, and it compels them to invest effort to maintain connection because they recognize that the emotional energy they encounter is manageable and non-threatening. The fourth action is engaging selectively and thoughtfully. Avoidants are attuned to energy, effort, and attention, and when you choose where and how to engage, it communicates that your presence is valuable and not automatically available. This selective engagement creates a natural tension, a magnetic pull, because they sense that if they want to be part of your world, they must actively earn it. This dynamic transforms ordinary interactions into meaningful encounters, where each engagement carries weight and significance, triggering their pursuit instinct. The fifth action is showing appreciation without over-investment, which involves acknowledging their efforts, validating moments of connection, and expressing gratitude in a balanced manner that does not compromise your own needs or boundaries. Avoidants respond to subtle recognition because it encourages positive behavior without overwhelming them with demands or expectations. These 5 actions work synergistically to create an environment where avoidants feel intrigued, safe, and challenged in just the right measure. Each action respects their need for autonomy while subtly inviting deeper connection, crafting a dynamic in which the pursuit becomes a natural consequence of the way you navigate your life, your boundaries, your emotional responses, your attention, and your recognition. And by embodying these behaviors consistently, you position yourself in a way that naturally triggers their desire to chase, explore, and invest in the relationship because they are drawn not only to your presence, but also to the balance of independence, value, and emotional intelligence. You consistently demonstrate emotional detachment as a catalyst is one of the most powerful strategies when dealing with avoidant personalities, because their behavior is often driven by a fear of emotional intensity and an instinct to withdraw when they feel overwhelmed. Emotional detachment does not mean indifference, apathy, or coldness. It is a state of grounded composure and inner stability that allows you to respond rather than react. Avoidants are highly sensitive to emotional volatility, and when they sense that someone is anxious, needy, or desperate for validation, their instinct is to pull back even further. By cultivating emotional detachment, you remove the pressure that naturally triggers their withdrawal, creating a sense of safety that paradoxically encourages them to step closer. This detachment is not about withholding affection or care. It is about maintaining your own emotional equilibrium, ensuring that your sense of self-worth, happiness, and fulfillment is not contingent upon their attention or approval. When you remain centered, calm, and unshaken, you communicate that your life is abundant and complete, which triggers a deep psychological response in avoidance because it challenges their assumptions that intimacy must be threatening or suffocating. Emotional detachment also allows for clarity of observation. You can see patterns, understand motivations, and interpret behaviors without being clouded by reactive emotion, and this clarity gives you the power to engage strategically rather than impulsively. Avoidants are drawn to individuals who exhibit self-control and self-respect because such qualities suggest strength, stability, and maturity, traits they often admire but struggle to embody consistently themselves. Furthermore, emotional detachment encourages avoidants to take responsibility for their own feelings and actions rather than projecting them onto you. When they realize that you are not dependent on their validation or approval, they are compelled to engage on their own terms, driven by curiosity, desire, and the natural tension that arises from the interplay of autonomy and connection. Detachment also involves mastering the art of presence without over-investment, of offering warmth, attention, and engagement in ways that are measured and intentional rather than reactive or excessive. This measured presence sends a subtle message that your attention is valuable and must be earned, creating an irresistible dynamic for someone wired to chase what cannot be controlled or possessed too easily. It is through this balance of availability and composed distance that avoidants feel the pull to pursue more actively, because the emotional environment you provide is neither threatening nor needy, but confident, abundant, and self-contained. Emotional detachment, when practiced consistently, reshapes the relational dynamic entirely. It allows you to maintain power and self-respect while subtly encouraging avoidance to step forward, to invest, and to engage with intention. By embodying this detached composure, you become a stable anchor in a sea of emotional uncertainty, creating a scenario in which the avoidant is drawn to chase, explore, and connect because they recognize that your world is complete, your boundaries are firm, and your emotional presence is grounded, all of which stimulates their desire while simultaneously preserving your own well-being, independence, and inner authority in ways that they instinctively respect and respond to without feeling coerced. The role of subtle communication in influencing avoidance cannot be overstated, because avoidants are highly sensitive to nuance, cues, and unspoken signals, often responding more to energy and implication than to direct statements or overt expressions. Subtle communication is about expressing value, interest, and presence without overexposing yourself or overwhelming their natural need for space. It begins with body language, which can convey confidence, calmness, and approachability. A relaxed posture, steady eye contact, and intentional gestures communicate strength and self-assurance in ways that words alone cannot. And these nonverbal signals often resonate more deeply with avoidance than verbal declarations of interest. Your tone of voice, pacing, and the way you modulate your energy all contribute to subtle messaging that signals emotional stability and groundedness, qualities that are highly attractive to someone who fears emotional intensity yet craves connection. Subtle communication also manifests in the art of timing and selective interaction. Avoidants are wired to respond to what is measured and intentional, and by choosing when to engage, respond, or initiate contact, you create a rhythm that naturally draws them in. They notice when your attention is earned rather than freely given, and this balance of availability and restraint stimulates curiosity, desire, and pursuit. Another layer of subtle communication involves verbal nuance. The words you choose, the way you frame compliments, questions, and observations, and the absence of neediness or over-explanation all convey your value without creating pressure. Avoidants are often attuned to subtle shifts in energy and word choice, so the way you express yourself can either invite them in or push them away, depending on the tone, confidence, and emotional balance behind the communication. Humor, light teasing, and playful banter are powerful tools in subtle communication because they create connection while preserving independence. They signal intelligence, confidence, and emotional flexibility, which are highly attractive traits for avoidants who fear overwhelming intensity but are drawn to depth and authenticity. Written communication, such as texts or messages, also plays a crucial role. Avoidants notice when responses are balanced, neither too frequent nor too scarce, neither over-expressive nor completely detached. The timing, tone, and content of messages subtly signal self-sufficiency, emotional composure, and selective engagement, all of which encourage them to invest effort to maintain connection. Subtle communication works in concert with presence and absence. When combined with periods of intentional space, it creates a push-pull dynamic that is psychologically compelling for avoidants because they are drawn to what is intriguing, valuable, and emotionally safe. Every interaction becomes a signal of your value, your independence, and your emotional intelligence, all of which triggers their desire to pursue, explore, and engage on their own terms. By mastering subtle communication, you do not have to manipulate or pressure them. Instead, you create an environment in which their natural tendencies to chase, invest, and seek connection are activated simply through your presence, your energy, your choices, and the careful, deliberate ways in which you express yourself. fostering a magnetic dynamic that compels them to move toward you instinctively without ever feeling forced or cornered, sustaining the attraction of an avoidant while maintaining your own sense of self is a delicate balance that requires awareness, consistency, and self-mastery. Avoidants are naturally drawn to independence, confidence, and emotional stability, and any sense of neediness, desperation, or over-investment can quickly trigger their withdrawal. Therefore, sustaining their interest is not about chasing or trying to control them. It is about embodying a life that is vibrant, fulfilling, and self-contained while simultaneously engaging in ways that subtly invite connection. One of the most important aspects of sustaining attraction is the consistent reinforcement of your boundaries. Boundaries are not restrictive walls meant to push someone away. They are clear declarations of your self-respect, your priorities, and your emotional standards. When avoidants perceive that you honor your own needs and refuse to compromise your sense of self for the sake of their approval, it triggers respect, admiration, and a desire to engage more actively because they recognize that your presence is valuable and not freely available to be taken for granted. Another crucial component is maintaining your own growth and passions. Avoidants are magnetically drawn to individuals who lead rich, dynamic lives because such people radiate energy, purpose, and independence that cannot be manufactured or forced. By continuing to pursue your goals, nurture friendships, develop skills, and embrace personal fulfillment, you create a sense of abundance that stimulates their interest because they see someone who is whole and self-sufficient, yet still approachable, inviting, and intriguing. Emotional equilibrium plays a significant role in this dynamic. Avoidants respond positively to stability and composure, and when you consistently demonstrate calmness in the face of uncertainty or withdrawal, you become a safe and attractive anchor. This does not mean suppressing emotions or becoming detached from your own feelings, but rather cultivating the ability to manage them effectively so that your emotional state is not dictated by their behavior or availability. Selective engagement is another key factor. The way you choose to invest your attention, time, and energy communicates value, and avoidants are drawn to people who are deliberate in their interactions. By being thoughtful in when and how you respond, and by offering engagement that is meaningful rather than automatic, you create a dynamic in which they must actively participate to maintain connection, which naturally triggers pursuit and interest. Subtle appreciation and acknowledgement further reinforce attraction without overwhelming them. Recognizing their efforts, celebrating moments of connection, and expressing gratitude in ways that are measured and genuine communicates both value and emotional intelligence. Avoidants respond to this subtle recognition because it validates their positive behaviors while respecting their need for autonomy. Over time, sustaining attraction becomes a practice of balance. Between presence and absence, attention and independence, warmth and composure. It requires vigilance in maintaining your own sense of self-worth, clarity about your emotional needs, and consistency in demonstrating the behaviors that naturally draw avoidance in. By embodying these principles, you create an environment in which their pursuit is a natural response where they are drawn to invest, engage, and explore the connection on their own terms, and you maintain your integrity, self-respect, and emotional freedom while simultaneously fostering a magnetic dynamic that keeps their attention and desire alive.